Welcome back to another episode of the Paranormal Journals, only here on Black Mass Paranormal. Now, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Definitely give this video a like. And if you have had any paranormal experiences that you would like to share on the channel, please email me below. So, today we are back with another amazing story coming off of the Appalachian Trail. The story took place in 2004 of two people that decided that they wanted to hike the Tennessee, North Carolina portion of the Appalachian Trail when they encountered what they believed to be the feral people. So I'm really excited, you all, that the channel's getting back in motion. I've decided that I'm going to restructure some things, and we're going to be moving forward at a rapid pace. So if you are excited about the paranormal and you want to know more, please consider joining either my members or Patreon if you are an Apple user. For those of you all that are new to the channel, my name's Brian, and I research the paranormal happenings mainly in Appalachia. And I'm originally from East Tennessee, and one of the original cryptids from this area is the Tennessee Wild Man. These encounters go back all the way to the 1800s, and people continue to go missing in our mountains. The Appalachian Trail runs from Georgia to Maine, and I've hiked portions of it. I've had some wild things happen along the way that I've actually got stories that I haven't told yet. So I will be adding that on soon. But this story originates in 2004 with a couple named Heather and Bryce. So Heather had reached out to me through email and told me this story about her interaction with what she believed to be the feral people in a section of the Appalachian Trail. Now, kind of a background, the Appalachian Trail has roughly 250 backcountry shelters. So these shelters are positioned between anywhere from 5 miles to 30 miles away from each other. The overall average, I believe, is 8 miles. So if you are hiking the Appalachian Trail, you are essentially relatively close to a good break at any point where you could seek shelter. And that's what Heather and Bryce intended to do. They were about 3/4 of the way done hiking this section. Heather and Bryce were just having a fantastic trip until they reached a section known as the Bald Mountains. So the Bald Mountains is an area in between the Smoky Mountains and the Blue Ridge Mountains. Both of these chains are part of the Appalachian Trail. The Smoky Mountains are known for thick layers of fog that can quickly develop and basically create an impossible travel situation. So at this point, they had reached a shelter called Walnut Shelter. They arrived at Walnut Shelter relatively late in the day, and they thought that they could make it to the next shelter, which was approximately 5 miles as the crow flies away to a Deer Park Mountain Shelter. So when they initially looked at the map and they put their protractor on it, they looked at it and said, okay, this is about 5 miles. We can definitely make this before dark. However, there are several sections that, as the crow flies at 5 miles, is totally different. The section that they made it through, it was relatively windy. I went back and started looking at it, and the fog had really started to set in. I mean, both of them, they were still extremely confident in their abilities. However, Heather decided that she needed to go to the bathroom. So she steps off of the trail, which if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I'm totally against that. You always stay on the trail, because no matter what you got to do, even if you got to dig a little hole and bury it, do it, because stepping off of the trail will almost certainly get you lost. So she was a little bit shy, and Bryce had promised that he wasn't going to watch, he wasn't going to, listen to her, but she insisted on stepping off of the trail. Bryce, unfortunately, did the same thing. He went a little bit north, she went west. The way that the mountains react to sound can be very disorienting. So once Heather finished up, the fog had really set in. She tried to make it back on the trail, however, she just couldn't find the trail because of how dense the fog that had come in was. Bryce was not too far away from her, but he was further north, and he too was having trouble finding his way back onto the trail. They began yelling at each other, and at this time, the sound mixed with the fog created the worst situation that they could be in. They were both off of the trail. They were both lost in the fog in the Appalachian Mountains. And Heather, once full panic set in, she said that's when she started to hear the sound. At first, she said it sounded like a chimpanzee screaming really loud, followed by several clicking sounds. If you've been following the channel for very long, you'll know that this clicking phenomenon that happens in the Appalachian Mountains, in my opinion, is a means of communication that the feral people use. So Heather tried to rush back to the trail when she got herself lost even further. Bryce was doing the same thing. They both were completely separated now, about a half mile apart from each other. Both yelling, both getting disoriented by not only the clicking sound, but the other chimp type sound. It was a really high pitched. She described it as being a chimp scream played in reverse. So it was this really echoed type sound. And, Scott Carpenter had actually recorded a sound that's very similar to this. That the way that she's describing reminds me, I need to send that to her. Actually, I'll play it here.
That's one of the ones that Scott Nelson went over and he broke it down phonetically.
Okay.
He said there's syllables being spoken.
At this point, they're about a half mile away from each other. This sound that's happening, followed by the clicking noise, is driving in further panic. If they were to get separated on the trail, they would return to the last shelter that they were at. So this was the plan. So Heather eventually finds the trail, and she sits there and she waits on Bryce. She's waiting, and he never comes. At this point, she's absolutely terrified. Bryce, on the other hand, has been knocked out, and he is now laying on the side of the mountain in the dark and in the fog. Heather eventually realizes that she cannot stay on the trail any longer. She knows that with the darkness coming in, the animals are going to be coming back, and she needs to find her way back to the shelter. She manages to make it back, but Bryce is unconscious at this point, and he is laying on the ground in the mountains. Eventually, Bryce wakens. He describes that when he opened his eyes, he saw another person that was just staring at him. He said that he had no idea how they got where they were at, but it was just a single elderly man that was not wearing a shirt. He said that he was extremely disfigured, that his eyes had this weird kind of glazed look over him, and he was just staring down at Bryce. Bryce had not heard of the Feral people, so he was under the assumption that he had just had a run-in with, one of the people that were living or were on the Appalachian Trail. Bryce wakes up and he's like, where am I? What is going on? And he said the man does not speak to him. He said he just continues to stare at him. Bryce described this man as, he said the man was about 5'7". He wasn't very tall. He was elderly, but Bryce could tell at the time if he would have ran into this individual earlier in life, he would be in a lot of trouble. So, and this is one of the weirdest experiences that I've heard from the Appalachian Trail, and Bryce stands up. At this point, the fog has cleared. He's able to find his way back to the trail and begins heading back to the Walnut shelter. So luckily, both Heather and Bryce made it out of this situation alive. They reached out to me. They were very concerned about coming forward with this information, because it not only makes the people that live in the mountains look bad, but it kind of makes them look crazy. Here Bryce he got bonked in the head by, he said that he felt like it was the man that hit him. But it very well could have been a Widowmaker branch, and this old guy may have just stumbled on him. There are a lot of weirdos on the Appalachian Trail, but Bryce swears up and down that this man did not look like a normal man, that he looked something completely different. What I think may have happened is just because of the panic that they both caused by screaming and yelling at each other, it actually steered off a major attack from the other part of most likely the Feral People clan, is what I'm calling them, because I believe that a lot of times they work together. But it was a very interesting story to me. I'm just kind of, I've been trying to picture what they were experiencing in my head, and it was just like unbelievable, because the majority of the Feral People stories that come out of Appalachia, they often end badly, which is why I wanted to share this one, because this is a very common circumstance that people are going to be experiencing along the Appalachian Trail. I know that there are a lot of nudists that hike the Appalachian Trail, it's kind of weird to see, but I've seen it. There are a lot of people who live off the hikers of the Appalachian Trail by stealing their goods. The sound that Heather described to me sounds like there was a means of communication happening between the elderly man and the other part of what I believe to be the Feral People clan. They are out there. I think that they've developed a completely different language. I think that Scott Carpenter captured that language. And I know that Scott was very big on that. It was a Bigfoot making those sounds. However, to me, they sound more humanoid. I love Scott. I love his work. I think we can agree to disagree on this situation, because and to this day, I want to figure out where that happened. Because, I get a lot of stories about people that have these so-called interactions. However, it's really hard to try to cover everything. So I know this story was not as intimidating as a lot of the feral stories that happen, but I want to make sure that everybody realizes, you know, who these people are. They're not necessarily, I don't think, all coming to kill you. I think that they are trying to live a life where they are just uncontacted. I think Bryce got lucky. I don't know whether or not he got hit. He doesn't know whether or not he got hit, and he wants to, just kind of live with this story. But, we're grateful. Thank you for sharing it with us, Heather and Bryce. Y'all are awesome. If you like stories like this, hit that subscribe button. If you're a returning viewer to the channel, definitely give this video a like. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And new video comes out this Sunday. So, until next time.